Hello and welcome back to another Torah Tuesday. Last week we started exploring what does it mean to be the image of God, and I argued that being God's image is not a certain capacity that we have, but that it's our identity. We have been appointed as God's representatives on this planet, and our task is to care for it. Today I want to explore another dimension of what it means to be the image of God, and this one comes from Genesis 5, verses 1 through 3. This is the written account of Adam's family line. When God created Adam, mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. This is echoing the language from Genesis 1:26, the word likeness. He created them male and female and blessed them. This is also echoing Genesis 1:27. And he named them Adam, or mankind, when they were created. When Adam, or Adam, had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. There's several things that we learn in these few verses that are really helpful. One of the big questions that theologians have asked throughout the centuries is whether the image of God is lost or destroyed at the fall. When Adam and Eve rebel against God and disobey, do they cease being the image of God? And I think that Genesis 5 answers that question by showing us that the image is still intact. We're reminded that God's made Adam in his likeness, using the same words from Genesis 1. And then we're told an analogy to help us think about what it means to be made in God's likeness. And that analogy is the analogy of parenthood. Adam parents a son named Seth, and that son is made in his likeness, in his image. So just as Adam had a son in his image, so God has children in his image, namely all of us who are human. So sonship is an analogy to being God's image. And I think that it's clear here that the image is still intact. It's reaffirmed after the fall. Now think with me a moment about this analogy of a parent-child relationship. If I have a child who rebels against me and he doesn't want to be in relationship with me anymore, he does not cease to be my child. He's no less my son than he was when he was obedient, right? His status as my son is unchanged because I gave birth to him, and that's what defines him as my son. So it's not contingent, his status as my child is not contingent on his behavior. And I think the same is true with our relationship with God as humans. Every human being is and remains the image of God, no matter their behavior, no matter whether they're rightly related to God. This has enormous implications for how we treat one another, because every human being is a signal of the presence of God on earth. Now, if you're someone who surrendered your life to God and you live in harmony with his rule, then part of your task is to treat every other human being with the dignity that is part of their inherent worth as a human, and to invite them to bring their lives into realignment with the God who created them. We discover our truest selves when we're rightly related to the God who made us and who designated us as his image, his royal family. So this adds to what we learned last week. Last week we talked about rulership or kingship as an implication of our status as God's image. This week we're discovering that we are also God's kin. We share kinship with him because we are made as his image. Have a great week.